Some people think waking up between 3 and 5 in the morning is random. They roll over, groan, check their phone, and go back to sleep. But what if I told you that this moment, this exact moment when your eyes open in the darkness, is not an accident? What if it's actually an invitation? An invitation from Allah Himself extended to your heart while the world sleeps. And most of us, we're rejecting it. We're rolling back over and missing something so profound, so transformative that it could change the entire trajectory of our spiritual life. My beloved brothers and sisters, tonight we are not talking about sleep problems or productivity hacks. We are talking about something far deeper. We are talking about why Allah wakes certain hearts when the world is asleep, and what it means that He's choosing to wake you. Because if you clicked on this video, if you're watching this right now, there's a reason. There's a reason your soul recognized that title. There's a reason something inside you said, yes, I need to hear this. Throughout this Ramadan, millions of people will pray. Millions will fast. But only a fraction, only those who truly understand the gift will experience the kind of spiritual transformation that comes from standing before Allah in the silence of the night. And the tragedy is this: so many of us are making mistakes in our worship that are actually pushing away the very closeness we're desperately seeking. We're praying the way culture taught us to pray. We're worshiping the way we saw others worship, but we're not praying the way Allah invites us to pray. And Allah, He notices. He's always noticed. Let me ask you something, and I want you to think about this deeply. When was the last time you woke up at 3 in the morning and felt like it was a gift? When was the last time you didn't feel frustrated about losing sleep, but instead felt grateful that Allah had chosen this moment to speak to you? For most of us, the answer is never. We've been conditioned to see sleep as sacred, to see wakefulness in the night as a burden. But what if it's actually the opposite? What if Allah is whispering to us and we keep hitting snooze on His mercy? In the Quran, Allah describes those who wake in the night. He doesn't describe them as suffering from insomnia. He doesn't describe them as sleep deprived or exhausted. No, He describes them with a word that carries the weight of everything. They are those whose eyes are turned away from sleep, not because they have no choice, but because their hearts have been awakened to something greater. Their eyes are turned away because they've tasted something that sleep cannot provide. They've tasted the presence of their Lord. Think about the physical world for a moment. When everything is silent, when the distractions are gone, when there are no notifications, no voices, no demands, that's when you hear most clearly, isn't it? That's when you can actually listen. The night has always been the canvas of whispers. The night is where prophets received revelation. The night is where the most intimate conversations between a slave and his Lord have taken place for 1400 years. And you, yes, you have access to that same night. You have access to that same silence, but you're sleeping through it. What makes this so tragic is that Allah is not asking you to stay awake every night. He's not demanding that you sacrifice your rest entirely. He's simply inviting. He's knocking on the door of your heart and saying, will you spend even a portion of this night with me? And so many of us, in our exhaustion, in our busyness, in our endless scrolling through the day, we've become deaf to that knock. We've become numb to that invitation. We've become the person who ignores the phone call from someone they love most because we're too tired. Here's what breaks my heart about so many Muslims in Ramadan. They approach the month like a checklist. Fast, check. Taraweeh, check. Quran, check. But they're missing the moment. They're missing the invitation. Because this month, this blessed month, it's not about completing obligations. It's about encountering your Lord. It's about feeling the presence of the one who created you, sustains you, and will judge you. And that encounter doesn't happen in the crowd at the mosque at 7 in the evening. It happens in the darkness of your room at 3 in the morning when it's just you and Allah, and nobody needs to know that you're there. Do you understand what I'm saying? The spiritual transformation that changes a person doesn't come from being seen. It doesn't come from performing prayer in front of others. It comes from those moments that nobody knows about. It comes from the tears you shed when nobody is watching. It comes from the du'as you make when your voice is so quiet that only Allah can hear. It comes from the softening of your heart that happens in the darkness when you realize that you're not praying because you have to. You're praying because you need to. Because without Him, you are nothing. This is something that has been lost in modern Islam. We've made worship about production. We've made it about volume, more prayers, more Quran, more rituals. But we've lost the intimacy, we've lost the tenderness, we've lost the conversation. In the night, in the silence, there is no performance. There is no audience. There is only honesty. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves honesty more than He loves any perfect recitation. He loves the broken heart more than He loves the polished performance. Think about the loneliness of night. Not the kind of loneliness that feels empty, but the kind that feels full. The kind where you're alone with your thoughts, alone with your regrets, alone with your hopes. In the day, we're constantly distracted. We're running from one thing to the next, numbing ourselves with work and conversation and screens. But the night strips everything away. It removes all the masks we wear. And when we finally sit down in that darkness and we face ourselves, really face ourselves, that's when we also finally face Allah. Many of you have felt this, haven't you? You've woken up at 3 in the morning, and instead of going back to sleep, you've stayed awake. Maybe you didn't plan to. Maybe you didn't even know what you were doing. But something in you knew. Something in your spirit knew that this moment was too precious to waste. And in that moment, even if you didn't get up to pray, even if you just sat there in the darkness, you felt something. You felt a presence. You felt a closeness that you can't find anywhere else. That feeling, that's not imagination. That's not emotionalism. That's spiritual reality. That's Allah drawing near to you because you drew near to Him. That's the natural consequence of being awake when everyone else is asleep. The Quran tells us that there is a door of Jannah that opens at night and it closes when the sun rises. Every night, there is a literal opening in the heavens, and we have no idea who will pass through it, who Allah will choose to honor, who will enter that proximity to His mercy. But we do know this. It will be those who are awake. It will be those who are present. What I need you to understand is this. Allah doesn't wake you up by accident. When your eyes open at 3 in the morning, it's not insomnia. It's an appointment. It's a date with destiny. It's Allah saying, yes, I've been waiting for you. And every single time you wake up, you have a choice. You can press snooze on the mercy of the Lord, or you can rise. You can go back to sleep, or you can step into something that will transform you. In Ramadan, this becomes even more significant because Ramadan is not a month like other months. It's a month where the veil between you and your Lord becomes thinner. It's a month where du'as are answered. It's a month where doors are opened that are closed the rest of the year. The Prophet, peace be upon him, told us that when Ramadan arrives, the gates of mercy are opened, the gates of punishment are closed, and the devils are chained. But that mercy isn't automatic. That mercy requires you to be present for it. That mercy requires you to be awake. And here's what breaks my heart most profoundly. So many Muslims are making the same mistakes in Ramadan, over and over again. They're praying, yes, but they're praying like they're checking a box. They're reciting Quran, but they're reciting it without reflection. They're making du'as, but they're making them without hope. They're going through the motions of worship, but they're not actually touching the heart of worship, which is intimacy with Allah. And Allah, in His perfect justice and perfect mercy, He's watching. He's watching to see who's sincere. He's watching to see who will wake up when He calls. The Prophet said, and listen to this carefully, the Prophet said that the closest that a servant comes to his Lord is in the last third of the night. Not in the day, not in the mosque, not in the congregation. The closest moment is in the last third, D of the night, when you're alone, when you're vulnerable, when you're standing before Him with nothing but your need and your longing. This is not a small matter. This is not an optional extra. This is the peak of closeness to Allah. This is where transformation happens. Think about how many nights you've wasted. Think about how many times you've woken up and rolled over. Think about how many invitations you've declined. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying this because guilt is the beginning of change. Guilt is the beginning of waking up, spiritually speaking. Once you realize what you've been missing, once you understand the magnitude of the gift that's been offered to you, you can never go back to sleep the same way again. There's a difference between people who sleep through the night and people who wake. And I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking spiritually. There are people whose hearts are asleep even when their eyes are open. They walk through life, they go through their worship, but they're not really awake. They're not really present. They're not really feeling the presence of Allah. And then there are people whose hearts have been awakened. These people have tasted something, they've felt something, and once you taste closeness to Allah, nothing else tastes the same. Nothing else satisfies. Nothing else matters in the same way. In this moment, right now, as you're listening to these words, I want you to feel something. I want you to let this sink into your chest. Somewhere in this world, right now, there's someone who's waking up at 3 in the morning. There's someone who's getting out of bed. There's someone who's walking to their prayer mat in the darkness. There's someone who's crying before their Lord. There's someone who's opening their heart and saying, here I am, I'm lonely, I'm struggling, I'm broken, but I'm here. And Allah is leaning in to listen. Allah is moved by that moment. Allah is honoring that person in ways that the world will never know. And that could be you. That could be your moment. That could be your night where everything changes. But it can't happen if you're asleep. It can't happen if you're numb. It can't happen if you're sleepwalking through Ramadan, like you're sleepwalking through life. This is the reality that we need to face. We are living in an age where distraction is the default. We are living in a time where busyness has become a virtue, where rest is something we grudgingly allow ourselves, where stillness is seen as laziness. And in this context, the night, the blessed, precious night, it's more important than ever, because the night is the only time left where there are no emails, no notifications, no demands. The night is the only time where you can be completely, utterly alone with your Lord. And you're treating it like something to get through instead of something to celebrate. But waking up is only the beginning. Because what you do in those moments of wakefulness, how you spend that precious time, how you stand before Allah in the darkness, that's where your entire spiritual transformation will be determined. That's where the real journey starts. Part 2 begins now and everything changes. When you wake up in the last third of the night, the first thing you should know is that this moment is explicitly mentioned in the Quran. Allah describes those who stand in prayer in the night as people who are walking a path that others have abandoned. The Prophet said, the best prayer after the obligatory prayers is the night prayer, not the prayers in the day, not the prayer, the Tahajjud. This is what Allah places at the highest level of worship. And yet it's the one thing that so many of us have never even attempted. What is Tahajjud really? It's not just waking up, it's not just standing and reciting some verses. Tahajjud is a conversation. It's a dialogue between you and your Lord, where you're asking and He's listening. You're seeking and He's giving. You're crying and He's hearing. The word itself means to awaken and to rise, but it means something deeper than that. It means to awaken to the truth, to rise from the sleep of heedlessness, to break free from the numbness that keeps us trapped in our own egos and our own distractions. When the Prophet would stand in Tahajjud, he would begin with glorification. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. He would wake himself up spiritually before he even began to pray. He would remind himself of the glory of Allah, the perfection of Allah, the infinite nature of Allah's power and mercy. And then from that place of awe, from that place of understanding how small we are and how great He is, then He would make dua. Then He would ask. Then He would pour out His heart. This is what we're missing. This is what's being done wrong in Ramadan and beyond. People are making duas without the foundation of Tahajjud. They're asking without first understanding who they're asking. They're presenting their needs without first presenting their acknowledgement of God's greatness. And Allah is not pleased with hollow requests. He's not interested in demands. He wants relationship. He wants recognition. He wants you to come before Him knowing that He is everything and you are nothing. And from that place of radical humility, then ask. In the last third of the night, there's a specific mercy that descends. The Prophet described it. He said that Allah descends to the lowest heaven in the last third of the night, and He says, "Who calls upon me that I may answer him? Who asks of me that I may give him? Who seeks my forgiveness that I may forgive him?" Subhanallah. Every night, every single night, Allah makes an offer. Allah opens a door. Allah says, "I'm here. I'm listening. Ask me anything." And we're sleeping through it. Do you understand the tragedy of this? Do you feel the weight of what's being missed? There is a moment every night where you have direct access to the mercy of the Lord of the worlds. Not through anyone else, not through any intermediary, just you and Allah. And the mercy is waiting. The door is open, but you have to be awake to walk through it. Now let me tell you what happens when you finally do wake up. When you finally stand in Tahajjud, when you finally make that first dua in the darkness, something shifts inside of you. It's not gradual. It's not something you feel months later. It's immediate, because the moment you recognize that you're standing before Allah, really standing before Him, really present, really honest, something in your heart breaks open. The hardness that we carry, the walls we build, the defenses we maintain, they begin to crack, and tears come. Oh, my beloved brothers and sisters, the tears that fall in Tahajjud are unlike any other tears. They're not tears of sadness, though they may come from a place of sorrow. They're not tears of joy, though they may come from a place of happiness. They're tears of recognition. They're tears that say, "I see you now. I feel you now. I'm not alone." These are the tears that the Prophet spoke about. The tears that fall when a slave stands before his Lord with absolute sincerity. The Quran tells us about these tears. It says that when the believers listen to the Quran, their eyes overflow with tears because they recognize the truth. Their eyes overflow. Not a tear or two, not a quiet acknowledgement, but an overwhelming of emotion, a breaking down of the walls between their hearts and the reality of Allah's presence. And this is what happens in Tahajjud. This is what happens when you finally stand alone in the darkness and let yourself feel what you've been too busy to feel during the day. There's something about dua in the night that's different from dua in the day. In the day, there's noise, there's business, there's the constant humming of the world telling you that you should be worried about other things. But in the night, the noise stops, the distractions fade, and suddenly, your dua is not just words that you're reciting. It's your actual voice. It's your actual need. It's your actual longing pouring out before your Lord. And here's what breaks the hearts of those who truly understand. Most of us, when we make dua, we're asking for things. We're asking for money, for health, for success, for relationships, for comfort. And yes, these are legitimate duas. The Prophet taught us to ask Allah for everything. But if that's all we're asking for, then we're missing the entire point. Because the real power of dua is not in getting what we want. The real power is in coming before Allah with our honesty. When you stand in Tahajjud and you say, "Ya Allah, I'm afraid," you're not just expressing fear. You're saying, "I know that only you can protect me." When you say, "Ya Allah, I'm lonely," you're saying, "I know that only you truly understand me." When you say, "Ya Allah, I'm struggling," you're acknowledging that you can't do this alone, that you need Him, that He is your only true support. And the moment you understand that, the moment you truly internalize that, then everything changes. This is the transformation that happens in Tahajjud. This is a spiritual alchemy that occurs when you spend time alone with Allah in the darkness. You come to understand, not as an intellectual concept, but as a lived reality, that your relationship with Allah is not transactional. It's not about performing actions and receiving rewards like you're playing a video game. It's about love. It's about connection. It's about knowing your Creator and being known by Him. In Ramadan, this becomes even more powerful because the veil is thin. The doors are open. The mercy is flowing. And if you step into that mercy with sincerity, with vulnerability, with a true desire to know your Lord and be known by Him, then Ramadan becomes a month of miracles. It becomes a month where you're transformed. It becomes a month where you don't leave the same person you came in as. But here's the mistake that so many people make. They think that this transformation happens automatically. They think that just by fasting, just by standing in Taraweeh, they'll be changed. And they might experience some spiritual highs, some emotional uplift. But real transformation, real lasting change, that comes from the conversations you have alone with Allah. That comes from the dua that you make when nobody's watching. That comes from the tears that fall in the darkness. The Prophet said something powerful about this. He said, whoever stands in prayer during Laylat al-Qadr with faith and seeking reward, his previous sins will be forgiven. Laylat al-Qadr, the night of power. One night of standing in prayer with faith and sincerity, and your sins are wiped away. But here's the thing. We don't know which night is Laylat al-Qadr. It's hidden. So what do? We treat every night like it could be that night. We stand in prayer every night. We make dua every night. We remain awake and present every night because any night could be the one. And this is how Tahajjud works. You don't do it because you're guaranteed a result. You do it because you're standing before Allah. You do it because this is what love looks like. You do it because your heart is calling you and your hands, wearing that call. And then as a result of that sincere intention, as a result of that true seeking, then the doors open, then the mercy flows, then your life is transformed. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a young Muslim man or woman who's been living a life that's half in Islam and half outside of it. They're trying to balance between the world and their faith, and they're constantly struggling. They're constantly torn. They pray sometimes, but their heart isn't in it. They're living in a state of spiritual numbness. And then one night in Ramadan, they wake up. Maybe they didn't plan to. Maybe something in them just broke open. But they get up and they go to stand before Allah. And in that moment, as they're standing in the darkness, as they're reciting Quran, as they're making dua with tears streaming down their face, something shifts. They feel the presence of Allah. They feel that they're not alone. They feel that Allah has been waiting for them. And in that moment, they make a choice. They decide that they're going to come back. They decide that they're going to be sincere. They decide that the world is not worth losing Allah over. And from that night forward, everything changes. Not because they've suddenly become perfect, but because they've been touched by something real. They've felt the presence of their Lord. And you can't feel that and go back to sleep the same way. This is not a story. This is not fiction. This is happening right now somewhere in the world. There's someone who's waking up tonight, and tonight is their night. Tonight is when they encounter Allah in a way that will transform their entire life. And the question is, will you be that person? Will you be the one who wakes up tonight and decides that tonight is different? But here's what I need to warn you about. The mistakes that people make in their tahajjud, in their night prayers, in their Ramadan worship that actually push away the very closeness they're seeking. And this is critical because you can stand in prayer all night, but if you're making these mistakes, you're actually moving further away from Allah, not closer. The first mistake is performing instead of praying. This happens when you're so focused on getting through your prayers, on completing a certain number of units, on finishing your Quran, that you forget why you're doing it. Your body is standing, but your heart is somewhere else. You're reciting words, but you're not connecting with their meaning. The Prophet warned about this. He said that a person might stand in prayer, but they get nothing from it except sleeplessness and difficulty. Because they're not praying, they're just standing. Tahajjud is not about quantity. It's not about how many rakas you pray or how much Quran you read. It's about presence. It's about every single moment being intentional. So when you stand to pray, stand knowing that you're standing before Allah. When you recite Quran, recite it knowing that these are the words of the Lord of the worlds. When you make dua, make it knowing that Allah is listening and He's responding, even if that response comes in a way you don't expect. The second mistake is asking without listening. So many of us, we make dua, we pour out our requests, we list our problems, we ask for specific things, and then we move on. We don't wait, we don't listen, we don't create space for Allah to speak to us through the Quran, through our own intuition, through the circumstances of our life. But dua is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. It's a conversation. After you ask, you have to listen. And sometimes when you listen, Allah is telling you something you don't want to hear. Sometimes Allah is saying, yes, I'll give you what you're asking for. But first, you have to let go of this. First, you have to change this. First, you have to stop this. And many of us, we're not willing to hear that message. We want mercy without transformation. We want forgiveness without change. And that's not how it works. The third mistake is seeking Ramadan spirituality without building habits for the rest of the year. Many Muslims experience a spiritual high during Ramadan. They feel close to Allah, they feel the presence, they feel transformed. And then, the moment Ramadan ends, they go back to their old lives. They stop waking up, they stop making dua, they stop reading Quran consistently. They stop being intentional about their worship. And gradually, they fall back into the same patterns. The spiritual high fades, the closeness disappears. And by the time next Ramadan comes, they're at zero again. This is tragic because it's so preventable. If you truly encounter Allah in Ramadan, if you truly taste the closeness, then you understand that you don't want to go back to sleep. You understand that this is what life is supposed to feel like. And even if the intensity fades, even if the tears don't come as easily, even if the spiritual high is not as overwhelming, the commitment remains, the intention remains. You keep showing up. You keep standing before Allah, even in the quiet nights when nobody's watching and nobody will ever know. The Prophet was asked, what is the best deed? And he said, to believe in Allah and His Messenger. But then he was asked, what's next? And he said, to maintain ties of kinship. And then what's next? And he said, jihad in the way of Allah. And the conversation went on, but there's something remarkable about the response. The best deeds are not just about individual moments of worship. They're about consistency. They're about showing up over and over again, whether it feels good or not. They're about building a life, not just having experiences. So when you stand in Tahajjud, when you wake up in the night, understand that this is not just for Ramadan. This is the beginning of a new way of life. This is the start of becoming someone who is awake spiritually, not just physically. This is what it means to be among those who remember Allah standing, sitting, and lying on their sides. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you start doing this, once you commit to these quiet moments with Allah, you'll notice changes in yourself that are unexpected. You'll notice that you're more patient during the day. You'll notice that conflicts with others affect you differently. You'll notice that worldly matters don't pull you the way they used to. You'll notice that you're starting to see people and situations through a lens of compassion and understanding. You'll notice that you're becoming kinder, gentler, more present in your own life. This is because when you stand before Allah in the night, When you truly encounter His presence, His mercy seeps into your bones. It transforms you from the inside out. It's not a change that happens through willpower or discipline. It's a change that happens through exposure to something real, something true, something divine. The prophet spoke about this. He said that the closest a servant comes to his Lord is when they're standing in prayer in the last third of the night. And not just standing, but standing with tears, with broken hearts, with complete honesty. And in that moment, Allah's mercy encompasses that person. Allah's forgiveness is granted. Allah's grace is given. This is not a promise of wealth or health or success in worldly terms. This is a promise of something far more valuable. This is a promise of being seen by Allah, of being known by Allah, of being loved by Allah. And once you know that you're loved by the Creator of everything, what else matters? What else can hurt you in the same way? What else can make you feel empty? So when you wake up tomorrow night or the night after that, when your eyes open at 3 in the morning, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that this is not an accident. This is an invitation. Allah is saying, come, sit with me. Tell me what's in your heart. Let me speak to you. And when you remember that, when you truly understand the magnitude of that invitation, you won't be able to go back to sleep. Your heart won't let you. You'll get up, you'll walk to your prayer mat, you'll stand in the darkness, and you'll begin the conversation that will change your life. You'll begin the journey of tahajjud, of standing before Allah, of being transformed by His presence. And from that night forward, you won't be the same person. You'll be awake, really awake. Ramadan is the month where this happens, but it doesn't have to end with Ramadan. The invitation continues. Every night, the doors are open. Every night, the last third comes. Every night, Allah is waiting. And every night, you have the choice to show up or to sleep through it. My beloved brothers and sisters, I'm making a dua for you right now. I'm asking Allah, the Mighty, the Merciful, to awaken your hearts, to give you the strength to wake up when He calls, to give you sincerity in your dua, presence in your prayer, and tears that come from a place of true connection. I'm asking Allah to transform your Ramadan from a month of routine into a month of revolution. A revolution of the heart, a revolution of consciousness, a revolution of coming back to the one who created you. And I'm asking Allah, finally, to grant you the state that the Prophet described, where you stand before Him in the night, where your eyes overflow with tears, where your heart is broken open by the reality of His presence. I'm asking Allah to grant you that state, not just in Ramadan, but always. I'm asking Him to make you among those who remember Him, standing, sitting, and lying on their sides. I'm asking Him to make you among the awake ones. May Allah bless you. May Allah transform you. May Allah make you of those who are truly alive, truly awake, and truly close to Him.